He got right off of his 12-hour flight that day and came straight with us to the stream.
Yikes. Breakdancing on 20 hours, no sleep. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is something I'm terrified of doing. The challenge was to perform a dance routine. We met our hip-hop dance instructor, Pepito, who was gonna coach us through the steps. The hardest part about getting the routine down was all the memorization we had to do. We had to get used to the rhythm of a beat and break the dance up into 4 parts, which we rehearsed separately. Most of the steps were pretty straightforward. There was some bouncing, some crouching, some legs crossing over, but parts of it required improvisation. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I had no idea what to do with my hands. After getting it down, we had to perform it live with music in front of a group of judges. We gave it our best shot, definitely butchered parts of it, but in the end, they were pretty generous with their voting.
Ready, steady, go.
Mitch tried his best to weigh me down, but I managed to carry it anyway. I'd say I'm probably the most naturally gifted dancer that they've ever had go through the academy. Paying those judges off was some of the best money I've spent on this trip. After another quick day, we hopped on the bus and made our way over to Hamburg. Our challenge was to recreate the dish that we picked without a recipe. Instead of picking the dish ourselves, we figured we'd let Chad have some input. They gave Mitch the nice and basic meat and potato dish. For me, on the other hand, Chad picked the hardest of the 3 dishes. It had a ton of different elements to it, a lot of things that I've never prepared before in my life. But you know what? Chat knew that I had a complex palate and that I was up to the task. As if the challenge wasn't hard enough already, we were doing it all on a 45-minute timer. Personally, I don't really come from a cooking background, but a lot of aspects of cooking make sense to me, and when you break everything down step by step, analytically, it's not too tough to put the right things together and make the dish that you want to make. We got out the ingredients that we thought we needed, and within minutes, everything was a huge mess. I didn't know how to make mashed potatoes to start off with, which was kind of the centerpiece of my dish. Mitch had no idea how to do any element of anything that he did. And, despite that, we kind of started taking it step by step and muscling through it. Mitch and I had a little bit of money riding on this, but it was mostly about the pride. As the timer started to tick down, I noticed that more and more of Mitch's dish was coming together. Mine, on the other hand, looked like a mess. He finished the last few steps of his dish, popped it in the oven, and all he had to do from then on was wait and watch me flail around. I chopped up the ingredients I needed to, I finished the mashed potatoes, started mixing stuff together, and slowly but surely my dish began coming together. The timer was ticking down to the last few seconds, but I managed to fry a couple eggs and complete the last few steps of my dish.
4, 3, 1, done.
There it is, time, boys, time. Nice.
I didn't think you make it in time, but it actually doesn't look bad. Did you see this?
It was a little too close for comfort, but I'm very proud of what I ended up with. This was a big step towards being a normal functioning adult in society, but I don't think I'm quite ready to go to the grocery store just yet. With our dishes ready to serve, it was now going to be up to a panel of judges to decide the winner. We brought together the 4 bravest people in the room to vote on how we did. With the way they were talking about our dishes, it sounded like Mitch was going to win by a landslide, and I was getting worried. Luckily, one of the voters worked for me, and I managed to squeak it out by just a point. Once again, having the judges on payroll was key, but this trip was starting to get expensive. With that out of the way, we got on the bus and began the long drive to Amsterdam for the final leg of our journey. When we got to Amsterdam, the first thing we did is make our way to the finish line. There were dozens of teams there, either celebrating the end of their journey or just relaxing after a really hard week. All of the teams were running through the finish line arch and celebrating the end of their journey. The faces in the crowd had every kind of emotion. Some of the teams were ecstatic and celebrating the end of their amazing journey.
Nothing out of it before we can make it. Nothing out of it before we can make it.
Other teams were exhausted and celebrating the end of one of the hardest weeks of their lives. Every one of these teams went on a unique path and had their own stories. Some of the teams just coasted through the trip and others had a really hard time. But for most, there was just a huge roller coaster of emotions. I loved hearing about everything that they experienced and being a part of that journey myself. Red Bull Can You Make It was one of the most rigorous, unique, and rewarding weeks of streaming that we've ever had. I'll never forget this adventure across Europe and the friends that we made along the way. I love getting a taste of what all of these cities had to offer. And we'll be back soon to dive into them even deeper.
We're nothing out of it, Red Bull we can make it. Nothing out of it, Red Bull we can make it. Nothing else to pay but a factory full trade. Starting up the Tuesday, we're making our way. Paris, Rome, Berlin and Madrid. My home will be home for a little bit. Taking out the streets, Europe. Red Bull, this shit is dope. We're nothing out of it, Red Bull we can make it. Nothing out of it, before we can make it. Oh, nothing out of it, before we can make it. Nothing out of it, before we can make it.
Yeah!